Let's bring in now MS Now investigative reporter Mark Santia in Tucson and retired NYPD officer Jillian Snyder and former FBI special agent Scott Curtis. Mark, Savannah made that direct appeal to whoever took her mother. What more are we learning from that video?
I think when you look at those videos, Ariel, you've seen a series of videos released by Savannah. The initial video was a plea right to her mom, a message right to her mother, Nancy. The second and third videos that came out were pleas to the public, asking the public to come forward, asking for tips. But this video was very different. It was a direct communication, a direct message to the kidnapper who took Nancy more than 2 weeks ago, and that message was extremely direct. Take a listen.
We are here. We believe. And we believe in the essential goodness of every human being. And it's never too late.
I have covered cases, criminal cases, for years. And Ariel, I've seen this time and time again, where a family makes a plea directly to the person who caused so much harm to their family. And I've seen results. I have seen people come forward. I've seen moms recognize their sons, pick up the phone and call investigators. But I've also seen people who have committed crimes step forward. Like Savannah said, it's never too late to do the right thing. And that's the message she's sharing today. Ariel?
Yeah, Mark, you can see the pain and agony on her face, so you really hope that is exactly what happens from that video. What can you tell us, Mark, about the glove that was recovered not far from Nancy's home and the DNA sample that may be attached to it?
So what we were told by the FBI, by investigators, is there were 16 gloves that have been recovered from these teams, these field teams who have gone out. Of those 16 gloves, there's one that really sort of came to the forefront for them. It was sort of like something stuck out, and it was different. Well, why was it different? Because they saw DNA there from a man, they say, who they believe was not one of the searchers. Now, you remember in that video, that surveillance video, the suspect had 2 pairs of gloves. They said what stood out to them was it appeared to look like one of those gloves. So they ran that through, Pima County Sheriffs ran it through their lab. It came back. FBI wants a closer look. Now, this, again, what they're saying is it's the DNA from a man. So it doesn't have a nexus at this point. It doesn't have a nexus to Nancy's home. They're not seeing Nancy's DNA on there or any forensic evidence that may have a nexus to this home, but they're still taking a closer look. That's going to be put into a database, CODIS, but that database, that pool, is from people who are convicted of a felony or in some states who have been arrested. So that's sort of the pool they're looking at. We're hoping to get some results back today to hear from the FBI as well as the County Sheriff's Department to hear what they have found from that glove that was discovered 2 miles away. Ariel?
I know you will stay on top of it. Mark Santia reporting there on the ground in Tucson. Thank you so much. And Jillian, the FBI said in their statement that investigators had collected, as Mark was reporting on, about 16 gloves in various areas near the house. Most of those belonged to some of the searchers who had discarded them nearby. But that one with the DNA profile recovered is different and appears to match the gloves on the subject in that very chilling surveillance video. So what do you make of this particular glove? What makes it stand out to you? And how do investigators then try to tie it to a potential suspect?
Well, obviously, they saw this glove with the other gloves, but this one, there's something about it that stood out, as you just said. Maybe they have some kind of linkage to it. It does very much resemble what we did see in that video footage. But from here, what we're going to do is once we get back this, what they could find in CODIS, if there's any direct match or if there's even a familial match, which will allow them to then see if this person has ever had a family member who has been arrested with DNA on file. And then from there, they can start their investigation going forward. But just because we're all talking about it, but law enforcement is not going to tell us immediately if they do have a hit in CODIS, because we don't want to give the bad guy the upper hand. So they will keep this information close to the vest until they could corroborate and hopefully get a search warrant.
That's a really important point to make, that we may not know from law enforcement exactly what is going on there behind the scenes so that the investigation isn't compromised. Scott, when should we expect to learn more about the DNA on this glove, who it belongs to? How critical would it be then to also tie that to Nancy and Nancy's DNA?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, what we know is that DNA was found inside this glove, and we're trying to identify the individual whose DNA that sample ties to. It'd be more important, right, if we had Nancy's DNA on the outside of that glove, because now we have a direct link to Nancy and the crime scene in this situation here. So with regards to identifying who this DNA sample belongs to, hopefully that individual or a relative of that individual is in that coded system. If not, it'll be entered in there. If that individual is in contact with law enforcement in the future, then hopefully that DNA extracted from that individual could be connected to the one put in the system here. I believe the next step maybe for law enforcement here is they may reach out to genealogy sites now, like we've seen in other cold cases, other investigations, and see if a relative of this DNA sample ever submitted a DNA sample to one of those genealogy sites for research for their own family's benefit.
Yeah, we have seen that bear out a lot in different investigations. Jillian, we've seen a few very dramatic moments in this investigation that appeared that they were going to lead to some progress, but in the end, those leads seem to wither up and fall short. We've also seen the video released. We have the glove now, the blood trail on Nancy's front step. Given what we know so far, what type of suspect do you think we're dealing with here?
That's a really hard call. We've had a lot of people theorizing what they think this was. Was it a kidnapping, a hostage situation, a negotiation for an abductor? Was it a burglary gone wrong? We've been hearing that as well. So because we don't have enough information, or at least I don't have enough information at this moment to make that determination, we can't exclude anything, any possibilities. So I think really having the video footage, to me, is the most concrete thing that we have, because I have no doubt in my mind that someone knows who that person is on camera.
So I've seen this question circulating, and I want to put it to you. Authorities are saying that they're not ruling out anyone at this point, even family members, although they don't believe this is tied to the family at this point. How likely is it that they go back and question the same people that they had stopped, those subjects that they had pulled over and questioned in the past, that they may go back to those subjects?
There is reason to go back to them. Now, we know that a search warrant was executed on that home when they took those 3 individuals for detention, not into custody, but just for questioning. Something led them there. A tip with some sort of credibility gave them probable cause to get a judge to sign a search warrant. So they had something. Maybe they didn't have enough to keep those people in custody, but it's not uncommon for law enforcement to revisit past leads, especially as more tips are coming in. So we've seen a lot of progress in this investigation. They have executed search warrants, they have questioned individuals, but we will commonly go back if we have follow-up questions or any more leads bring us back to that point.
Scott, going back to Savannah's new message, what do you make of her speaking directly to whomever may have her mother, saying it's never too late to do the right thing? Do those types of personal, emotional pleas playing to the perpetrator's humanity typically tend to work?
Yeah, sometimes they do. I mean, that's a key phrase that she used. It's never too late to do the right thing, because hopefully she can guilt somebody that has firsthand knowledge of this crime or firsthand knowledge of the individual that we see on the Nest camera footage there, to call in law enforcement with a tip regarding those types of information there. And that's a plea to the general public there, because that's the quickest way to get resolution in this case, in my opinion, is to get the public involved in phoning in tips. The technology aspect of things, the forensic aspect of things takes time, as we see. But having somebody call in a tip of firsthand information is going to quickly bring resolution to this case.
Jillian, Savannah and her siblings had been asking for a line of communication with the potential kidnapper in the original videos. At this point, do you think those ransom notes are legitimate, the ones that were sent to news outlets?
In my opinion, there's not enough out there to make me believe that these are verifiable and authenticated ransom demands. Traditionally, and just looking at it through more of a behavior, a profiling, if you will, of someone who is going to engage in a kidnapping or a kidnap for profit, they would typically do direct outreach to the family, because that's who's going to pay the ransom. You don't normally see them go to media outlets. That's more to inflame the story and get more people talking about it. So in my personal opinion, and from my investigatory experience, this is very not typical situation.
All right, Jillian Schneider and Scott Curtis, I hope the next time we speak, it's because there's a big break in this case. Appreciate both of you.